What's up, YouTube? I'm Trent Wel-Don. Welcome back to the channel, Well-Done Tanks. So I've been working down here on the fish room for the past couple days. It's been dirty. It's been great. It's been fun. I knew this was going to be a lot of work, but like one thing my wife said, though, is I got ready to do all this. She's like, yeah, but it's work that you love. And I do love it. I love what I'm doing. So I've got a couple parts of the auto water change system done. And I want to show you. I want to show you how I did it, why I did it, a couple things that I've learned from the last time I did this, and I'm most likely going to break this down into probably 2 to 3 videos, because if I did it all in one video, it'd be really long, and I want to make sure this has enough detail in it that if you choose to watch this video, it'll actually help you, that you can find what you're looking for. So let's go ahead and turn the camera around and let's get started with part 1. And that's actually like water source, right? You have to be able to tap into water somewhere to do an auto water change. All right, so for me, I chose to use my utility room. This is actually the wall that goes into the fish room. So this was a perfect opportunity to do this. Everybody's calm down. Yes, this is my electrical panel. Yes, there's a plug up here. Everything will be properly taken care of. Everything's going to be where it won't leak, nothing. So do not worry. I've thought about this. You don't need to flood the comments that I'm an idiot. It'll be fine, I promise. Now, I could have tapped into my main water heater, and I could have done all that. I did that on my last fish room, actually. That I actually was able to run everything through the PEX pipes, and I put it down into a mixing valve. So I've learned some things, and I wanted to try some things. And I spent a lot of time watching the fish room tour of Dean's Fish Room that Corey did with the Aquarium Co-op, that I focused on that. I would actually like rewatch videos over and over and over, stopping and like highlighting specific things that I wanted to check out, specific things I wanted to know more about. So one of the decisions I made for this fish room is I really wanted a dedicated water heater specifically for this fish room. It's not that I wanted to take water supply from my house. It's just, I just wanted something that I could set the temperature and forget about it. So this is a small tankless water heater that I chose to get. I found this on Amazon. I can leave a link down in the description below. It will be an affiliate link. This was about $100, so it's not super expensive, not super cheap, but it's just a small electric tankless water heater, which will do enough for me, right? I don't need insane amount of hot water. I just need the water to come out probably about between 72 to 75 degrees. And that was the hardest part of selecting a hot water heater, was actually finding one that would go low enough. A lot of these are rated for over 100 degrees because this is typically used in like a sink application. But I really wanted to use this for my fish room. So this is where we're at. So this is where I'm going to get hot water from for the fish room. But now it's the source connection. So if you've been following me previously, I tapped in to my PEX pipe here in my utility room in the cold water line that actually feeds this. This is my RO unit that will be using, my RO water. We're going to be using it for the saltwater tank that we're going to be doing here in a couple months. So since I already tapped in there, I knew it was going to be easiest if I could feed the water heater with that same 1/4 inch RO line. So I tapped, so this ball valve opens the main water source. When we come over here though, and I teed off, brought to another ball valve to another ball valve over here, so I can control the direction of the water. Now I purchased all of these through Bulk Reef Supply, but I'm sure you can find these on Amazon. This is just 1/4 inch RO tubing, and it's just 1/4 inch ball valves that connects to all this. So what I did is from that main water source, comes over, we teed off to this ball valve. Open this ball valve. This is going to run this blue line over. Say, I still got to connect all this. I'm going to get these out of the way. I have clips, so all this is going to be clipped up on the wall. But then I bring that over to here. And this I bought, it's the dual DI canisters, so it's just think of this as a housing for some pre-filter before we hit the water heater, and this is what's going to take out any chlorine in my water. So instead of having to use a dechlorinator, I'm going to be using a carbon block. So Bulk Reef Supply sells these for different applications, but the same size filters fit into each canister. So this is all really RO material that I'm using, but it works however you need it to. In my past fish room, I bought some canisters from Home Depot that fit the same size, the same 10-inch filters, and it came with some female 1-inch thread applications for PVC pipe to connect to. And I had the roughest time with those. They leaked and leaked. I could never properly fix it. And I've never had an RO unit leak. Properly installed with these push connections, I have never had one of these leak. So I wanted to do that. I knew that I wanted this for this fish room. In my last fish room, I actually upgraded to a similar setup, but I just bought 2 single canisters. You can find these, again, Bulk Reef Supply. I know these are all over Amazon, so I will try and leave links down in the description below, both to Bulk Reef Supply and Amazon. So for those who maybe aren't in the US, can still find what you're looking for if you want to copy this or, you know, adapt this to your needs. So the first chamber, we have a 1 micron sediment filter. So this is going to filter out any junk coming through my water. I have fairly clean water here, but I do not want anything getting into the hot water heater and potentially damaging it. So that's one reason why we have these filters before we get to the water heater. So I have the 1 micron sediment filter. After the water goes through this canister, so it really flows in. It's going to go all the way down to the bottom. It's going to flow back up. It's going to come over to this next canister. This is a 5 micron carbon block. So 1 micron going to filter out a bunch of crud, but this carbon block is still going to filter out a bunch of sediment and different things. But that is rated to pull out any chlorine, chloramines I may have in my water. So it's a really good carbon block. I know you can find cheaper options like Home Depot, Amazon. But again, I bought that through Bulk Reef Supply. That's who I like to go through for my filtering applications. So that's how this is set up. These will allow me to not have to use any dechlorinator in my fish room, except if I'm doing like a manual water change. You do not need a sediment filter before your carbon block. This is completely optional. I just chose to, though, as it's going to extend the life of the carbon filter, and it just makes me like ease of mind, right? I just want to make sure that my water is going to come out completely clear, and it's not going to necessarily strip out like any minerals or different things in the water. It's just taking out sediment, chlorine, and then it's going to hit the water heater and go out to the fish room. So again, I'm using this 1/4 inch RO line. I love this stuff. Super easy to work with. It's fairly cheap as well. And one reason why I bought this particular water heater is it had 1/2 inch male threads already on. So I connected here with the RO line, and then we come over, so it's cold water in, hot water out. Very simple to use. Down here we can set our temperature. But one thing I want to point out though is the way that I connected that RO tubing to this. So Bulk Reef Supply, and I'll leave a link down in the description below. I have not been able to find these on Amazon, but I'm using that same application up here on my ball valves. Let's see if I can get a better look for you. So Bulk Reef Supply sells these. They're like 1/2 inch bulkheads that are push connect. But Bulk Reef Supply sells these that are a 1/2 inch thread to a 1/4 inch push connect. Super little handy bulkheads that have really allowed me to minimize this project. So we connected one down here. That's where I was able to connect with the RO tubing. And I know this may not be the fastest feed, especially if I were to connect this through PEX pipe, but it was the easiest way for me to connect this here. So you have numerous options of how you really want to connect to this water heater if you choose to do so. You just got to figure out what's best for your application. So then after the hot water comes out, it's going to run up here through the wall. And here's where I branched off with a 3/4 inch bulkhead. So I'm using 1/2 inch PVC pipe, but here I adapted to 3/4 inch. And this will allow me to actually connect a Python water change system here. And that'll allow me to do larger water changes if I choose to do so by hand, filling tanks. It's just kind of something to have on standby. But what I could also do is I could use that port to make sure the temperature is correct before it comes up into the main manifold. All right, I know I'm talking a lot, but again, I want to give as much detail on this system because I've watched hundreds of hours of YouTube videos to piece this together, and I've been planning this for months. So I really want to make this just educational, packed full of information. You may have to watch this a couple times, but it gives you what you need. So I built my own manifold just how I needed to because I'm going to have 3 ports. So we're using 1/2 inch threaded ball valve, But then I use that same bulkhead adapter up here that's a 1/2 inch thread, so a 1/2 inch metal thread to a 1/4 inch push connect. And what that is going to allow me to do is one of these is going to feed the 220, one of these is going to feed the 90-gallon cube, and one of these is going to feed the new rack we just set up. But with that 1/4 inch push connect, we're going to be able to use this same RO tubing to each one of these tanks. So from here, it's going to run up the wall. And then up in here, I drilled a hole through the wall and put a 3/4 inch pipe in. And that will allow me to feed all the 1/4 inch RO tubing through the wall. And then I'll run it to the tanks. So it's a fairly simple setup, but these adapters are what makes this key. I saw something like this in Dean's fish room when I was watching Aquarium Co-op's tour of it, but I could never really piece together how he did it. And then I came up with this idea, and this is the closest I can get without true details in that video. I don't know exactly what Dean's using, but this is what I came up with, is these 1/2 inch thread to 1/4 inch push connect fittings that will then allow me to run the 1/4 inch RO tubing up through the wall into the tanks without any issue. So on my previous fish room, I actually did that. I used 1/4 inch RO tubing. I used all those fittings, but I had to adapt it it was difficult to adapt to. It was kind of messy. It wasn't the cleanest. So my goal here was to really clean up this auto water change system. So if you want to do this, I highly recommend, if you can, find these 1/2 inch thread to 1/4 inch push connects and build a manifold out of this, and it will clean up everything. It's so much easier to hide a 1/4 inch line than it is like, say, like a 1/2 inch line. So again, this is how I've done it. It's not necessarily the best way, the correct way, but this is the best way I've come up for my application. This is the second fish room I've done, the second auto water change system I've done, and people are going to argue this isn't truly an auto water change system because I don't have an electronic valve on here or a timer. But all I'm going to have to do is just come in, flip a ball valve to whatever rack I want, and let that run for, let's say, like an hour, right? I'll kind of measure out how long it's going to take for me to do that water change. But it's so easy to walk in, turn a ball valve, water's flowing, set a timer, walk away, and I'm changing water. Whew. All right. A lot of talking, a lot of information. I hope this helps. So the key points of this is I'm using RO tubing that's 1/4 inch to push connect fittings. I'm using the sediment filter to the carbon block filter, which then feeds down to the tankless water heater, which then feeds to the manifold, which then feeds to the tank. So quick, simple step process. But like I say though, after having built my last fish room, and when I was getting ready designing this one, I knew that this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to have a separate water heater, but even if you kept tapped into your main water heater for your house, you could still do this. You can still set up with this. They have connections to like a 3/4 inch hose adapter, which then is a 1/4 inch push connect. So a lot of mumbo jumbo, a lot of technical terms. But again, study the links down into the description below. And I hoped I explained this well enough that it makes sense. But as you can see, I think we're already pushing over 15 minutes. So this is why I wanted to make this more of like a 2 to 3 part video, is I wanted to give you as much information as I could in each video, which will then allow you to adapt this to fit your needs. So guys, thank you for joining me. If you have any questions at all of how I set this up, leave me a comment down below. You can also send me a direct message through Instagram. It's just at Wel-Don Tanks. I'll leave a link down in the description below for that as well. So again, any questions about parts I'm using, how I did it, send me a message, leave me a comment, and again, adapt this to your needs. But guys, we are moving along in the fish room. Super excited for everything. So thank you so much for joining me, and we'll see you guys in the next one.